This glass monolith is the Phanteks X2, and this case it's like a Carlos Santana guitar solo. It's big, it's smooth, it has complexity, and it brings the heat. And if you're thinking some of those things sound better in the music world than the PC case world, you're not wrong. Is the Phanteks Evolv X2 worthy of becoming your next PC case, or should you just forget about it? Well, we're gonna find out all about that right here, right now on Robeytech. We got our first look at the Phanteks Evolv X2 at Computex last summer, and we were blown away by how pretty this case was and how different it looked. It had such a distinctive look to it that we could not wait to give it the Robeytech treatment. I mean, what's not to love? It has a unique glass and steel industrial vibe with some tasteful RGB, but it did leave us with a lingering question. How do you get air into this thing? After all, aesthetic appeal is great, but you have to be able to cool the parts that go inside of it. Fortunately, Phanteks was kind enough to send one over to us so that we could answer all of those questions and more in the Robeytech Ultimate Case review of the Evolv X2. Now let's get to know the X2 a bit better, starting with the prices and models. At the time of this video, the Phanteks Evolv X2 was available in two versions, brushed black for $150 or silver white for $160. We start looking at comparable cases, we see cases like the Asus Tough Gaming GT502 Horizon, the Lianli O11 Evo, and the Fractal North. So price-wise, it falls in line with cases that have more premium price tags. As far as physical dimensions go, the Evolv X2 is similar in length to the OG Corsair 4000D and 3500X, similar in width to the NZXT H5 Flow, but a height more closely matched to the Phanteks NV7. Now when it comes to weight, the X2 is 33 pounds or 14.2 kilograms, which is hefty. Weight-wise, this puts it in line with cases like the Montech King 95 Ultra, which you can actually check out a review of right here. Now, as for the I/O and controls, the Phanteks Evolv X2 has two USB 3.0 Type A ports, one USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 Type C port, a combo audio jack, as well as reset and power buttons. As far as I/O's location, it actually sits down at the bottom left side of the case, which can be handy if you have your case sitting on your right-hand side. However, if you like sitting your PC case on the floor so you can have your cats and dust bunnies appreciate your RGB, you're probably not gonna like this location. Now, moving inside of the Evolv X2 isn't quite toolless, but it isn't overly complicated either. However, order of operations is actually important here. So first what you're gonna do is you're gonna remove the top panel, which is held by a couple of tabs, but a kind of a firm upward pull will remove the top. Then you can pop the tempered glass side panels out by pulling the small notches near the rear of the case. Now, just as an FYI, these can be held in by screws. Ours came shipped that way. There are two screws in these locations. You have to unscrew them. So if it's not coming out when you first get it, just make sure those screws get removed before you try and break the tempered glass with your Hulk-like strength. Now let's talk about motherboard support though. The Evolv X2 can fit mini ITX, micro ATX, ATX, and eATX motherboards with a width of 280 millimeters. Now considering that there is nothing blocking the cableways and no front or side fans to compete with, we're confident that the case is going to be actually pretty good for eATX motherboards, though you are going to have a little bit of overhang, so it'll be up to you to decide if that's okay for your build. The one thing that's nice about this is that it actually uses these rubber grommets on the side, so even with the overhang, it'll be very easy to route cables. Now, as for GPU support, the Evolv X2 has support for GPUs with a max length of 380 millimeters. Again, without front or side fans in the way, this should be more than enough room for your larger Radeon, Arc B-Series cards, and RTX 50 series GPUs. Now, if you can find a B-Series card from Arc that's that big, that is overkill, but I'd love to see that, and make sure that you tag us on Twitter if you find that. As always, we would recommend that you check with your GPU manufacturer to see if your GPU of choice will actually fit. And speaking of support for GPUs, the Evolv X2 has a built-in GPU support bracket. Now, the adjustment is limited to vertical height, but we do appreciate the addition of a support bracket and found that it even worked with our uniquely shaped Zotac RTX 40 series test GPU, as well as the 5080 series GPU that we used as well. One other quick note here, the PCIe lane mounts have a plastic cover that slides out to reveal the screws. This helps the case keep its smooth aesthetic without sacrificing functionality. Now moving on to support for fans and cooling, this is where things start to get interesting. The Evolv X2 can fit up to 3 120mm fans at the case top and case bottom, as well as one 120mm fan at the case rear. That's it. That's all the fans you get, and because of how the fans mount at the bottom, we do recommend using reverse fans for intake here. Not only do they look better, but there's also a very real risk, and we actually have heard this, of regular fans coming into contact with the bracket if they're literally on their head. Moving on to radiator support, the X2 can support either a 240 or 360mm radiator at the case top. Now this is another area that really kind of takes some extra planning and thought. There is enough space in the top of the case to hide a radiator inside, but it's limited to a thickness of 38mm, which honestly for AIOs isn't a problem given that most of them are 27mm thick. Now moving on to storage space, the Evolv X2 has a drive bay that will support either two 3.5-inch hard drives at the same time, or two 2.5-inch SSDs and one 3.5-inch hard drive at the same time. Now as for PSU support, the X2 can support PSUs with a length of up to 250mm, which is plenty of room for most modern PSUs here. That being said, there is not a whole lot of extra space to tuck cables, so using a shorter PSU may not be a bad idea. And also, finding other spaces for cabling can also be a challenge. And rounding out our tour with internal connections, the Evolv X2 has USB 3, USB-C, it has a unified front panel connector, HD audio, as well as a DRGB connection for the X2's accent RGB strip. Now, with all the ins and outs covered on the Phanteks Evolv X2, let's take a look at the thermal performance. As a reminder, the specs for our test bench are here on the screen right now, and if you want to pause and take a look at them, you absolutely can. Now, these are the same parts we use in all of our PC case tests, every single time. All of this is done in the same testing environment, with the same tests, and the same Intel stock CPU power settings every single time. We science the crap out of this. While at idle, the Evolv X2 averaged 26 degrees Celsius. This average made the X2 get cozy with cases like the Phanteks NV7, which, hey, good for Phanteks, and the Cougar FV270, two tempered glass heavy cases, which will be important as we look at thermal performance across the board. Now moving on to our CPU load test, the Evolv X2 averaged 75 degrees Celsius, which moves it into the warmer half of the tested cases, but not dangerously warm though. These temperatures position the X2 next to cases like the Asus ROG Hyperion and the Height Y70. As for gaming, the Evolv X2 continues its movement towards the warmer end of our charts with an average of 49 degrees Celsius. These temps put it in line with cases like the NZXT H9 Flow and the original Fractal North. Again, higher temps, not ideal, but again, not dangerous. As for GPU temperatures, at idle, the Evolv X2 held our test GPU at a thermal average of 32 degrees Celsius. This positioned the X2 near cases like the Montek King Ultra, the Height Y40, and the Lianli O11 Vision. Under GPU load, in our 1440p gaming benchmarks, the Evolv X2 averaged 61 degrees Celsius on our test GPU. This positioned it near cases like the Corsair 6500X, the Antec C5, and its Phanteks friend, the NV7. For context, this was on the cooler side of the middle of the cases we've tested in 2024 and 2025. Now some of you are probably picking up that our test GPU fared better than our CPU here. This is largely because the GPU is sitting directly in the path of the lion's share of the Evolv X2's air intake, leaving our test AIO with some leftovers. So with the thermals tested and a build or two completed, would we recommend the Evolv X2 as your next PC case? First and foremost, we have to point out that some of the things we're going to share here are really subjective, while others, well, you're just going to have to make your judgment call with the data you have. Starting off, there is no question that if you like an industrial vibe, the Evolv X2 is a really pretty PC case. Phanteks did something really unique with the design that made it both beautiful to look at and easy to build inside of. Not only that, they did some really thoughtful things like the PCI lane cover that kept the design seamless. The challenge, however, that the X2 faces is finding the balance between form and function without sacrificing one or the other. Unfortunately, there are a few places where form kind of tipped the scales. Here's what I mean. The Evolv X2's wide open design gives a great view of internal components, which is awesome, and it's made even more wide open with the use of back connect motherboards. However, the open design subtracts space for cabling in the back. Even with like the good cableways, we still found ourselves tucking cables into the bottom space along the PSU. Now, I'll say this again, there was never a time when we felt like the GPU or the CPU were in danger. However, our data did paint the picture that if you're looking for a case that will keep your components frostier than most, this is not it. The way I see it is this, to unpack what I said at the very beginning. The Evolv X2 is big in size and features, but it has some complexities. Its smooth surfaces can be a bedrock for some really stunning builds, and a lot of fingerprints. And it also kind of feels like it really is made for Phanteks components, because we saw the issues with fitment where, you know, when we put different fans down at the bottom, we got sounds and all that sort of stuff. So it's interesting. And it also runs hotter than a number of cases that we've tested both this year and last. The short of it is that this means you're gonna really wanna choose your components carefully. You're gonna wanna use a more power conscious, less thermally active CPU. Make sure that your bottom fans are correct. They don't cause additional noises. They're probably reverse fans. And then for your AIO, you're probably going to want to use something that's more efficient and powerful than the one that we use in our test bench. Now, if you do these things, the Phanteks Evolv X2 can serve as the foundation for a breathtakingly beautiful PC build. But if you just like to throw your parts in a case and forget about them, this may not be the case for you, unless you want to hear your PC gently weeping or wheezing for air. So those were our thoughts on the Phanteks Evolv X2. But as always, we want to know what you think about this case. Do you like what Phanteks was going for with this case? What would be your ideal build inside of something like this? And what do you think about the whole bottom to top airflow design? Let us know all that down in the comments below. Now, while you're down there, make sure you slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so that you get a notification each and every time we post a video like this right here on Robeytech. And if you want to continue the conversation, maybe talk a little bit about what you put inside of it, or maybe this isn't the case for you and you want to figure out which one might be, head over to our Discord server, discord.gg/Robeytech. Amazing place to talk to other tech and PC enthusiasts about these very same issues. And you know what? You might just make a friend. Also, make sure you follow us on all the other socials at Robeytech, absolutely everywhere. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.